When my son told me he had temporarily borrowed my entire life's fortune, I collapsed onto my marble foyer floor, my heart shattering like the antique vase that fell with me. Days later, I was standing in line at a soup kitchen, clutching my designer handbag, the last remnant of my wealth. That's when I realized trust is like a glass mansion, beautiful to admire, but dangerous to live in. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and comment where you're from. Because trust me, this story is about to twist harder than a DNA test on a daytime talk show. My name is Margaret Whitfield. At 72, I was supposed to be enjoying the twilight years of my life in the comfort that old money provides. The Whitfield name had always meant something in this city: respect, elegance, philanthropy. My late husband Charles had built upon his family's banking empire, and I had spent decades cultivating our social standing. Our sprawling estate hosted charity galas where the elite would gather, writing checks with many zeros while sipping champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. And then there was Richard, my only son. My pride. My heir. My downfall. The morning it happened was like any other. I was enjoying my breakfast on the terrace, fresh croissants, imported jam, and Colombian coffee. Simmons, my butler of 30 years, approached with the mail on a silver tray. "Your bank statement, madam," he said, his face unnaturally stiff even for him. I opened it casually, expecting the usual. Instead, I stared at numbers that made no sense. Where there should have been millions, there were zeros. Where there should have been security, there was nothing. My hands trembled as I called the bank. "There must be some mistake," I insisted. "I'm afraid not, Mrs. Whitfield," the manager said. "The transfers were authorized with your password and authentication. All funds were moved to offshore accounts over the past week." "I never authorized any transfers." My voice rose sharply. "The authorizations came from your home IP address, ma'am. And they were confirmed by phone from your personal number. Script part separator ===." That's when I heard Richard's Aston Martin pulling into the driveway. I hung up without another word and stood waiting in the foyer, my body rigid with disbelief. Richard walked in, handsome as ever in his tailored suit, his father's confident stride. The moment he saw my face, he knew. "Mother," he said, setting down his briefcase. "I was going to tell you today." "Tell me what?" My voice was ice. "That you've stolen everything I have?" He had the audacity to look offended.
"Not stolen.
Invested. It's a temporary situation." "Temporary?" I was shouting now. "You emptied my accounts without my knowledge. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Mother. The returns will triple your money in 6 months." Richard approached, arms outstretched. I needed to move quickly. The window was closing. I stepped back. "Where is my money, Richard?" "It's in a private equity deal. Very exclusive." "I couldn't risk you saying no." "Because I would have said no." My hands were shaking. "How could you do this? Everything your father and I built." "Dad would have understood business risks," Richard snapped. "This is why I didn't tell you. You're too conservative with investments. Too afraid." "Afraid?" I laughed bitterly. "I'm not afraid, Richard."
I'm furious.
And betrayed. His phone buzzed. He checked it, frowning. "I need to take this. We'll discuss this later when you're calmer." And just like that, he walked out, leaving me standing in the foyer of a home I suddenly wasn't sure I could afford. I called Amanda Douglas that afternoon. She wasn't just any attorney. She was the shark other sharks feared. We had served on charity boards together, and she owed me a favor after I'd introduced her to the governor at last year's opera gala. "Margaret," she said when I entered her office, "you look terrible." I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. "My son has stolen everything I have." Amanda's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "Everything?" "Every account. My stocks. The family trust. All of it." She tapped her red fingernails on her desk. "And you're sure?" "The bank confirmed it. Richard admitted it. He claims it's an investment." "Do you have any cash? Anything he couldn't access?" I shook my head. I trusted him completely. He had all my passwords, all my accounts. Script part separator ===. Amanda pulled out a yellow legal pad. What about assets? The house? Cars? Jewelry? I twisted the diamond ring on my finger. Charles's last gift before cancer took him. The house is in a separate trust. He couldn't touch that. But utilities, taxes, staff salaries. My voice broke. I can't maintain it without liquid assets. We'll file for an emergency injunction today, Amanda said, already typing on her computer. We need to freeze any accounts he hasn't emptied yet and track where the money went. As Amanda worked, my phone rang. It was Santiago Rivera, Charles's former business partner. They'd had a falling out years ago over a deal gone wrong, but Santiago had sent flowers to Charles's funeral. Margaret, I just heard. This is unconscionable. His deep voice resonated with concern that felt almost too perfect. News travels fast, I replied coldly. The financial world is smaller than you think. Listen, I want to help.
Charles would have wanted that.
Charles fired you, I reminded him.
Santiago chuckled.
Water under the bridge. Meet me for lunch tomorrow. I might have information about where Richard is putting that money. I agreed despite my suspicions. I couldn't afford to turn down help, even from Santiago. That evening, I returned to an eerily quiet mansion. Half my staff had already quit after hearing rumors they wouldn't be paid. Simmons remained, loyal as ever. There's someone here to see you, madam, he said. Your grandson. Tommy stood in the living room, his lanky 17-year-old frame awkward in the formal space. Richard's son from his first marriage had always been quiet, bookish, nothing like his father. Grandma, he said, rushing to hug me. I heard Dad took your money. It's all over school. Kids saying the Whitfields are broke. I stiffened. News travels even faster than I thought. Dad's been acting weird for months, Tommy continued. Always on private calls, meeting with people I've never seen before. Do you know anything about this investment he mentioned? Tommy shook his head. But I'm good with computers. Maybe I could help track the money? I studied my grandson's earnest face. Could I trust anyone with the Whitfield name? Please, Grandma, he insisted. Let me help fix what Dad broke. Looking into his eyes. So, like Charles's, I made another decision I would come to regret. All right, I said. But we start tomorrow. Tonight, I need to figure out how to keep this roof over our heads. Script part separator . The next morning, reality hit like a sledgehammer. My credit cards were declined at the grocery store. The cashier's pitying look as I fumbled through my purse for cash I didn't have was worse than any society snub I'd ever endured. Mrs. Whitfield? A voice behind me made me jump. It was Claire Evans, a former housekeeper I'd let go years ago when she'd become too familiar with Charles.
Let me get that for you.
Before I could protest, she'd paid for my pathetic collection of bargain items. I don't need charity, I hissed, mortified. Claire's smile was gentle but knowing. Consider it a loan. I heard about Richard's investment. Town's talking. Of course it was. By noon, my phone was ringing with concerned friends whose sympathy thinly veiled their morbid curiosity. By evening, invitations were being rescinded. The opera board sent a delicately worded email suggesting I take time for personal matters before the next fundraiser. I met Santiago at an obscure cafe rather than our usual country club. He was waiting, handsome as ever despite the silver in his hair. Margaret, he stood, kissing my cheek with European familiarity. You look ravishing as always. Skip the flattery, I said, sitting down. What do you know? Santiago leaned forward. Richard's been meeting with Victor Zhang. My blood ran cold. Zhang had tried to buy Charles out years ago, using tactics so underhanded they bordered on illegal. Zhang's been looking for Whitfield weaknesses for decades, Santiago continued. This investment scheme reeks of his methods. Why would Richard work with him? Money. Revenge. Who knows? Santiago shrugged. But if Zhang's involved, this isn't just about an investment. It's about taking over the Whitfield holdings completely. What holdings? I laughed bitterly. There's nothing left. Santiago's expression turned serious. The house, Margaret. The art collection. The land upstate. And most importantly, the Whitfield name. That still means something in this town. As I left, Santiago pressed a business card into my hand. My private investigator. best in the business.
Call him.
Script part separator I didn't have time to consider Santiago's offer. When I arrived home, I found an eviction notice taped to my front door. Not for missed payments, but for a second mortgage Richard had apparently taken out months ago, without my knowledge. Inside, Simmons was packing his belongings. "Madam," he said, unable to meet my eyes, "I've received no salary for 6 weeks." Mr. Richard assured me it was a banking error, but I felt numb. "How long have you known about our financial situation?" "The utilities have been shut off twice this year already. I pay them myself from my savings." His voice cracked. "I can no longer afford to do so." I reached for my grandmother's pearls at my throat, the last valuable I wore daily. "Take these," I said, removing them. "They should cover what I owe you, and more." After Simmons left, I sat alone in my darkening mansion. No lights. The electricity was now officially disconnected. My phone rang. "Amanda." "I've tracked some of the money," she said without preamble. "It's worse than we thought. Richard didn't just take your money. He's been systematically emptying the family foundation for 18 months. "The foundation?" My voice rose to a shrill pitch. "That's not even my money. It's for the children's hospital." "Exactly. Which means we can bring criminal charges. This isn't just a family dispute anymore." As I hung up, Tommy appeared in the doorway, laptop glowing in his hands. "Grandma, I found something," he whispered. "Dad's been communicating with someone named Zhang. There's a meeting scheduled tomorrow at the Plaza Hotel." "Show me," I demanded, peering at email screenshots. The correspondence revealed a shocking truth. Richard was selling not just my fortune, but the Whitfield legacy itself. Zhang would acquire our name, our reputation, our social connections, everything my family had built for generations. "We need to be at that meeting," I said. Tommy's eyes widened. "We can't just walk in." "No," I agreed, a plan forming. "But I know someone who can get us in." I called Santiago. "I need your help," I said.
"And your PI."
The next morning, dressed in the hotel's housekeeping uniform provided by Santiago's PI, I pushed my cleaning cart toward the presidential suite where Richard and Zhang were meeting. Tommy, posing as an IT intern, had already placed a recording device under the conference table. I wasn't just going to catch my son in his betrayal. I was going to destroy him with his own words. Script part separator I stood outside the door, hands trembling as I adjusted my uniform cap. Through the cracked door, I could hear Richard's voice, confident, smooth, the voice that had convinced me to sign over power of attorney just in case after my minor heart scare last year. "The beauty of this arrangement, Victor, is that my mother trusts me completely," Richard was saying. "She won't contest anything once it's done." Zhang's response was cool, calculated. "And the grandson? He poses no threat?"
"Tommy?"
Richard laughed. "He's a teenager obsessed with computers. He has no interest in the family business." If only they knew Tommy was currently in the hotel security office, having charmed his way in with his computer knowledge, monitoring every camera feed. Nevertheless, Zhang continued, "I want all loose ends tied up before we announce the acquisition. The Whitfield name is only valuable if the transition appears legitimate." "My mother will be taken care of," Richard assured him. "A modest apartment, a small allowance. She'll be too embarrassed to fight back publicly." The rage that surged through me nearly made me burst through the door right then. But Amanda's words echoed in my mind. Get evidence, not revenge. At least not yet. My phone vibrated. A text from Tommy. "Grandma, get out now. Dad's security guy just entered the lobby." I abandoned my cart and hurried toward the service elevator. Too late. The doors opened to reveal James Porter, Richard's head of security, a man who knew my face all too well. His eyes widened. "Mrs. Whitfield?" I did the only thing I could think of. I slapped him hard across the face.
"How dare you?"
"Working for my son while he steals from me." The unexpected attack worked. James stepped back, stunned, giving me just enough time to slip past him and into the crowded hotel restaurant. My heart pounding, I ducked into a bathroom and changed into clothes Tommy had stashed for me earlier. When I emerged, Santiago was waiting at a corner table. Did you get what you needed? He asked, signaling for coffee. Enough to prove Richard is working with Zhang, I said, my voice shaking with anger and adrenaline. But not enough to get my money back. Santiago leaned forward. There's something else you should know. Your attorney, Amanda Douglas? She's on Zhang's payroll too. Script part separator . I felt like I'd been slapped. Amanda? That's impossible. She's helping me file against Richard. Santiago pushed a folder across the table. Look for yourself. Inside were photos of Amanda meeting with Zhang last week, bank statements showing transfers to her offshore account. Everyone has a price, Margaret, Santiago said softly. Even the sharks. My world was collapsing faster than I could process. Richard, Tommy, and now Amanda. Who could I trust? What do I do now? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Come stay at my guest house, Santiago offered. We'll regroup. I shook my head. I need to confront Richard first. Tommy texted, meeting over. Dad heading to car. I rushed to the hotel entrance just as Richard emerged, looking triumphant. When he saw me, shock replaced his smile. Mother? What are you? Selling my name, Richard? To Zhang of all people? I stepped closer. Your father would be disgusted. Richard's face hardened. Dad never understood business evolution. Zhang is the future. The future? He tried to destroy your father. And now he's saving us from bankruptcy, Richard hissed. The Whitfield fortune has been dwindling for years. I'm preserving what's left of our legacy. By stealing from me? From the foundation? Richard glanced around nervously. Not here. Get in the car.
No.
I stood my ground. Return my money by tomorrow, or I go to the police. He laughed, actually laughed. With what evidence? Your senile accusations? Amanda has already filed papers questioning your mental competency. The pieces clicked together. That's why she wanted me to sign those preliminary documents yesterday. You've always been too trusting, Mother. Richard's smile was cold. A family trait I didn't inherit, thankfully. Script part separator . Richard signaled to his driver, who stepped forward menacingly. Is this how low you've sunk? I asked. Threatening your mother physically now? Just ensuring you get home safely. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You seem confused, wandering around hotels in disguise. Tommy appeared suddenly at my side.
Dad, stop it.
Richard's expression darkened. What are you doing here? You should be at school. I'm helping Grandma, Tommy said, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. Someone in this family should. Get in the car, both of you, Richard ordered. This is a family matter. No, I said firmly. Tommy, we're leaving. As we turned to walk away, Richard grabbed my arm. You're making a mistake, Mother. Zhang will destroy what's left of us if this deal falls through. I yanked free. You've already destroyed us, Richard. Back at Santiago's elegant guest house, I collapsed onto a sofa. Tommy sat beside me, his laptop open. I've been digging into Dad's emails, he said. There's something weird about this Zhang deal. Santiago brought us tea. What kind of weird? Tommy turned his screen toward us. The money trail. Dad didn't just transfer Grandma's money to Zhang. Most of it went somewhere else first. Where? I leaned forward. A company called Nexus Ventures. I can't trace who owns it. Santiago Fronet. I know that name. One of Victor's shell companies. No, Tommy said, scrolling through documents. The registration is different. It was incorporated just 6 months ago. I felt a chill. By whom? Tommy looked up, his expression grim. That's what's strange. The paperwork is hidden behind layers of privacy shields, but I found a digital signature buried in the code of their website.
He paused.
It's Amanda Douglas's personal encryption key. Script part separator . Script part separator . The next morning, I confronted Amanda in her office, recording our conversation on Tommy's modified smartwatch. Nexus Ventures, I said without preamble.
Tell me about it.
Amanda's perfect composure faltered for just a second. I'm not familiar with. Don't lie to me. I slid Tommy's printouts across her desk. Your digital signature is all over it. You're working with my son to steal my money. She studied me with new respect. You've been busy. Return my money, or I go to the bar association. And the police. Amanda laughed. With what evidence? Those papers prove nothing legally. What about the recording of you and Richard discussing how to declare me mentally incompetent? I bluffed. Her smile vanished. There's no recording. Check your office for bugs lately? I stood. You have 24 hours. As I turned to leave, Amanda called out, Margaret, you're making a dangerous mistake. Richard isn't who you think he is. Clearly, neither are you. Back at Santiago's, Tommy was furiously typing. Grandma, I found something huge. Dad's been transferring money to offshore accounts for 3 years, not just months. Santiago peered over his shoulder. Those transfers predate Zhang's involvement. And look at this, Tommy pointed to a document. Dad's been paying someone called the consultant $5 million annually. Santiago's face darkened. I know who that is. Who? I demanded. Victor Zhang's personal fixer. The man who handles his dirty work. What kind of dirty work?
Tommy asked.
Santiago and I exchanged glances. The kind that destroyed your grandfather's reputation before he died, I said quietly. Dad wouldn't. Tommy began, then stopped, his face crumpling. He would, wouldn't he? The question is why, Santiago said. Why work with the man who ruined his father? Script part separator . I called the private investigator Santiago had recommended, a gruff ex-cop named Malone. Mrs. Whitfield, I did some digging, he said after we met at a nondescript diner. Your son has been meeting with Zhang for years, since before your husband died. That's impossible, I whispered. Charles would have known. Malone slid photographs across the table. Richard and Zhang, looking friendly at locations dating back 5 years. There's more, he said grimly. Your husband's cancer treatments? The experimental ones that failed? What about them? My throat tightened. Zhang owned the pharmaceutical company. The treatments were never tested properly. Your husband was essentially a guinea pig. The floor seemed to drop beneath me. Are you saying Richard helped kill his own father? I'm saying the timeline is suspicious. Charles changes his will, leaving everything to you instead of directly to Richard. Suddenly, he's getting cutting-edge treatments that accelerate his decline. I stumbled outside, vomiting in the alley behind the diner. Tommy found me there, his young face pale with concern. Grandma, we need to move quickly. Dad scheduled a press conference tomorrow announcing the merger with Zhang's company. What merger? There's nothing left to merge. The Whitfield Foundation, Tommy explained. It's still solvent, barely. Dad's going to transfer control to Zhang, who will then dissolve it and absorb the assets. The children's hospital funding will disappear, I realized with horror. Santiago appeared, cell phone in hand. We have less than 24 hours to stop this. Script part separator . I marched into Richard's office the next morning, Santiago and Tommy flanking me. My son looked up, momentarily startled before his face settled into practiced calm. Mother, this is a surprise. His eyes flicked to Santiago. And unwelcome company. Call off the press conference, Richard, I demanded. He leaned back in his chair. What press conference? The one where you hand the foundation over to Zhang. I stepped closer. The one where you betray not just me, but every child who depends on that hospital funding. Richard's jaw tightened. You don't understand the complexities. I understand that my husband, your father, died after taking experimental drugs from Zhang's company. I cut in.
Drugs you encouraged him to try.
The color drained from Richard's face. That's absurd. Tommy stepped forward, laptop open. It's all here, Dad. The timeline, the payments to the consultant, your meetings with Zhang while Grandpa was still alive. You're spying on me? Richard's voice rose as he stood. My own son? You stole from your own mother, Tommy shot back. Guess betrayal runs in the family. Richard lunged for the laptop, but Santiago blocked him. Security cameras are recording, Richard. Think carefully about your next move. My son's face contorted with rage. You have no idea what you're meddling with. Zhang will destroy us all, if this deal falls through.
Why?
I pressed. What does he have on you? Richard's laugh was hollow. It's not what he has on me. It's what I have on him. He glanced at his watch. And in exactly 40 minutes, it won't matter anymore. Script part separator equals. Richard pushed a button on his desk, and 2 security guards entered.
Please escort my family out.
They're unwell. Santiago stood his ground. Before we go, Richard, you should know that copies of all Tommy's evidence have been sent to the FBI, the SEC, and 3 news outlets. Time-released emails. If we don't stop them in the next hour, your career is over. My son's face paled. You're bluffing. Try me, I said. Cancel the press conference. The phone on Richard's desk buzzed. Sir, Miss Douglas is here. Amanda swept in, immaculate in a blood-red suit. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of our group. What's going on? A family reunion, Santiago said coldly. How much is Richard paying you to betray your ethics, Amanda? She smiled thinly. More than you offered 20 years ago when you tried to steal Whitfield Industries from Charles. I turned to Santiago, confusion clouding my thoughts.
What is she talking about?
Your knight in shining armor here, Amanda gestured to Santiago, attempted a hostile takeover of your husband's company. When that failed, he partnered with Zhang. Santiago's face hardened. That's ancient history. And irrelevant.
Is it?
Amanda turned to me. Ask him where he was the day Charles changed his will. Ask him who suggested those revolutionary cancer treatments. The room spun around me as pieces clicked into terrible place. Santiago's timely reappearance in my life. His convenient help. You? I whispered. You worked with Zhang against Charles? Santiago reached for my hand. Margaret, it's complicated. I jerked away. You're all corrupt. Every last one of you. Tommy's phone chimed. He looked up, face ashen. The press conference is starting early. We're too late. Script part separator equals. I sprinted to the elevator, Tommy and Santiago racing behind me. We reached the hotel ballroom just as Richard was approaching the podium, Zhang sitting smugly in the front row. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard began, his voice echoing through the packed room. Today marks a historic transition for the Whitfield legacy. Stop, I shouted, striding down the center aisle. Every head turned, cameras swiveling to capture the disruption. Richard's smile froze. Mother, this isn't the place. This is exactly the place, I declared, reaching the stage. Before my son announces the destruction of my family's charitable foundation, you should all know what's really happening. Security guards moved toward me, but Tommy had connected his laptop to the room's projection system. Suddenly, emails, bank transfers, and meeting logs flashed on the giant screen behind Richard. The Whitfield Foundation isn't merging with Zhang Enterprises, I announced. It's being gutted by my son, who has already stolen my personal fortune. The Children's Hospital will lose all funding. Reporters jumped to their feet, shouting questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. Richard grabbed my arm. You have no idea what you've done, he hissed. I know exactly what I've done, I replied, yanking free. I've saved my husband's legacy. Ms. Whitfield, a voice called out. I turned to see a stern-faced woman approaching, flanked by men in dark suits. I'm Special Agent Carter, FBI. We've been investigating financial irregularities at the Whitfield Foundation for months. She turned to Richard. Mr. Whitfield, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. As agents handcuffed my son, I noticed Amanda slipping toward a side exit. Stop her too, I called out. She's been facilitating the transfers. 2 agents intercepted Amanda, who looked at me with cold fury as they escorted her away. I turned, expecting to see Santiago, but he too was being handcuffed. Wait, I protested. He was helping me. Agent Carter shook her head. Mr. Rivera has been on our watch list for years, Mrs. Whitfield. Your grandson's evidence finally connected him to the conspiracy. Tommy stood beside me as we watched all 3 being led away. I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't know about Santiago until last night. The courthouse was packed 6 weeks later as the judge prepared to announce the sentencing. I sat in the front row, Tommy beside me, his hand gripping mine as Richard stood before the bench. Richard Whitfield, this court sentences you to 18 years for financial crimes against your family and the charitable foundation entrusted to your care. Richard turned, his eyes finding mine with a look I couldn't decipher. Hatred? Regret? It didn't matter anymore. As the bailiff led him away, Tommy leaned close. It's over, Grandma. But it wasn't quite over. The recovery of my assets would take years. The mansion was gone, sold to cover legal fees. The Whitfield name was tarnished, whispered about in society circles where I once reigned. Yet something unexpected happened in the ruins of my former life. I found freedom. 3 months later, I stood at the podium of the newly reorganized Whitfield Children's Medical Fund, which Tommy now helped me manage. Reporters gathered as I announced our first post-scandal initiative. From betrayal comes rebirth, I told the cameras. My family's legacy isn't in mansions or bank accounts, it's in the lives we touch. That evening, Tommy and I ate takeout in our modest new apartment overlooking the park. I received another letter from Dad today, he said quietly.
And?
He still wants forgiveness. Tommy set down his fork. Do you think we'll ever forgive him? I considered this. Forgiveness isn't about erasing what happened, Tommy. It's about refusing to let it control our future. As I looked at my grandson, the true heir to everything that mattered in the Whitfield legacy, I realized that wealth and status had never been the real fortune. Trust, when placed in the right hands, was the only treasure worth protecting. But as I closed my photo album that night, remembering Charles and the empire we built, I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, somehow, this wasn't truly over. Because in families like ours, secrets never stay buried forever.